Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of the trailer for Ahsoka, the new Star Wars series coming this August, following Rosario Dawson as the former Jedi Ahsoka Tano from her brief appearances on The Mandalorian, but really extending the lore from the animated Star Wars Rebels series and before that, Clone Wars. I'm gonna break down this trailer frame by frame for the Star Wars Easter eggs, who all these characters are, the timelines, some really cool visual details. First clip.
Something's coming. Something dark. I sense it.
Ahsoka Tano, you know, this badass, walks among what appear to be the ruins of a Jedi Temple, one of the older ones. It's got a series of columns all broken at the top and black sands cast over a stone tile floor. The framing of Ahsoka alone walking up this immense walkway recalls the imagery of her leaving the Jedi Order in Clone Wars Season 5, when she was framed for bombing the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, and the ensuing persecution left such a bad taste in her mouth that she had to part ways with her longtime mentor Anakin Skywalker, which made it really interesting when she returned in Chapter 13 of The Mandalorian, an episode interestingly titled The Jedi, when she wasn't supposed to be a Jedi anymore. But somewhere deep down, she's always been a Jedi at heart. So is this the ruins of a Jedi Temple? Well, there are some markings on all these ruins that do look vaguely similar to the underground Jedi Temple on Lothal in Rebels, and so we could look at the parallelism here as a bit of a Jedi homecoming for Ahsoka. Or is it? Because notice ahead of her is a massive statue that we do not see the top of or the face of. Structurally, it's similar to the massive crumbling Jedi statues surrounding the Jedha Plateau in Rogue One, but later in the trailer, as Ahsoka duels Morgan Elsbeth's Corvus droids from Chapter 13, in this same setting, you can see another smaller broken statue with bare feet, which, as a huge fan of Lost, gives me some major vibes of the broken four-toed statue foot of Taweret. So could this actually be a Sith temple? Chapter 14, The Mandalorian took Grogu to the Jedi Temple ruins on Tython, a planet in the deep core. Actually, let's pull up the galactic star map here, because maps are gonna play a very, very big role on this series. It's all about maps. If there's a place you gotta go, I'm the one you need to know. It's the map. So the deep core region of the galactic star map was actually brought up in Chapter 19 of The Mandalorian when Dr. Pershing's Wikipedia article about Coruscant, which gets cut off right before mentioning the planet that's closest to the center of the galaxy, which according to the map is Biss, B-Y-S-S, you know, as in abyss. They aren't always subtle with the wordplay here. Biss was considered Palpatine's throne world. It's actually more from legend, so it remains a mystery how canonical titles will use it, but it is very, very close to Tython. And here, Ahsoka mentions something's coming, something dark, which could be her investigating the darkness creeping up on Grogu and on the New Republic in the form of Palpatine's shadow operation, the First Order. But perhaps by this time, Palpatine would have moved from Biss to Exegol, where we see him at the beginning of The Rise of Skywalker, when the Sith Eternal has successfully cloned him. These ruins are the same location that we see later in the trailer when Ahsoka faces Baylan Skoll. When projected around these ruins are a blue star map, the same configuration that surrounds the Ahsoka title card of this series. So this place could contain an old Jedi or old Sith star map of the unknown regions where the Purgle hyperspace whales took Thrawn and Ezra Bridger in Rebels, because that has been Ahsoka's mission, to try to find Ezra. We saw some Purgle cameoing in Chapter 17 of The Mandalorian, the recent season premiere, and Bail Organa hinted at them in Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it has all been leading to this. Now, some people say this starry location looks like the world between worlds in Rebels. That's an interdimensional realm that can kind of see through time, that Ezra was guided through by Loth wolves, and he used it to save Ahsoka by pulling her in, but she was forced to re-enter the point in her timeline after Vader left. So she didn't really get trapped there. Time travel was pretty limited. Hopefully stays that way, but I'm telling you, Star Wars Rebels, crazy show. You have to watch it. I just don't think here this will be the worlds between worlds. I thought it was really fun to explore in the animated show. In live action, it's just gonna open up too many questions of time travel, but I love this move. Ahsoka ignites her lightsabers and does this spinny move to cut a hole that drops her to the chamber below. She did this same maneuver in the Clone Wars final episode to help her and Rex escape the clone troopers during Order 66. Let's move on.
This is a new beginning. For some, war. For others, power.
Okay, we see a red Lucasfilm logo, a switch from the normal green Lucasfilm logo, another transition from the heroic green of Star Wars to the morally compromised red. Natasha Liu Bordizzo plays Sabine Wren from Star Wars Rebels, another Mandalorian character from House Wren, who previously was a weapons specialist for the Empire but defected. Mostly known for very, very short hair, now her hair has grown the hell out, so we can see those vibrant colors really shining. Interesting how she is kneeling before her Mandalorian helmet as if she is praying to it. Interesting parallel there with how dogmatic the Children of the Watch are with their Mandalorian iconography, but it also just feels like she's wrestling with her Mandalorian ancestry, as she always is. She never got along with her mother Ursa Wren on Cronus since she defied the Empire. That was like an embarrassment to her family, but she is the character who rightfully won the Darksaber from Gar Saxon in that arc on Rebels. It was none of that Elder Wand possession bullshit logic that we saw this week on The Mandalorian, but we also have Sabine to blame for just giving the Darksaber to Bo-Katan and cursing Mandalore and setting it on this stupid path. We see she has a Loth cat. These cats are from Ezra's homeworld of Lothal, and we hear the voice of Baylan saying, "This is a new beginning, for some war, for others power." Ray Stevenson plays this villainous character, Baylan Skoll, who seems to have an apprentice, Shin Hati, played by Ivana Sakno. Skoll and Hati are the names of the two wolves that chase the sun and the moon in Norse mythology. This wolf reference could align with the Loth wolves of Lothal, and the sun and the moon might align with the son and the daughter of Mortis in Jedi Force mythology from the Clone Wars Mortis arc, and those deities were also depicted on the Lothal Jedi Temple in Rebels. Ahsoka, back in the ruins, fights with these red droids with their spears, and again, these are the same ones that Morgan Elsbeth used on Corvus. So these are the forces of Elsbeth, and by extension, the forces of Thrawn. And based on the hole in the ground, this is right after Ahsoka comes back out of the hole. We see Hera Syndulla, Captain of the Ghost in Star Wars Rebels, now played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead. She's a Twi'lek pilot, one of the best pilots in the Rebel Alliance, and the ship she's piloting here is not the Ghost, it's really a smaller detachment from the Ghost called the Phantom. And the jacket she wears bears a symbol of the crew of the Ghost. And with Zev's cameo recently on The Mandalorian, it looks like we might see a live-action reunion of the entire crew of the Ghost, which would be awesome. The astromech we see here is Chopper. That's a little stinker from Rebels, who cameoed on the base in Rogue One, and I always piss off Rebels fans by reminding everyone that this guy killed hundreds of thousands of Imperials by sabotaging a Star Destroyer, and he pushes droids to their deaths for no reason. Shin storms the bridge of a New Republic vessel. The badge of the captain is a single dot, which means lieutenant. Shin's hooded appearance reminds us of Luke Skywalker when he stormed Moff Gideon's light cruiser in the Mandalorian Season 2 finale, but Shin's motives are far more hostile. Notice she has a braid, the kind Jedi Padawans wear, and started a really unfortunate trend in the early aughts. So Baylan and Shin might not be Sith and apprentice, but a kind of perversion of the Jedi Order. Their sabers are not quite red from cracked kyber crystals that they would have had to bleed their rage into. They're more of an orange color, as if not all the way there. Now, if you're the kind of person who watches a fantasy movie named Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves and leaves the theater going, I need more fantasy action, then you are going to want to get Dragonair Silent Gods the second it drops. Dragonair Silent Gods is an upcoming PC and mobile open world high fantasy RPG. Dragonair Silent Gods has collaborated with Dungeons & Dragons, meaning that iconic gameplay features and characters that you already know from D&D are incorporated right into the game. Now, spoiler alert, one of those characters is Drizzt Do'Urden, the absolutely most badass drow from Dragonlance. So, you know, sign me up. The open world and sick graphics of Dragonair Silent Gods gives me the feel of playing a tabletop RPG without having to devote a ton of space in your apartment to miniatures and battlefield set pieces. But if you also do that, no shame. And hey, if your only exposure to D&D is Honor Among Thieves, you'll still find plenty you recognize, including Dragonborn, bards, mimic chests, basically everything but Hugh Grant's undeniable charm. So if that sounds cool to you, then you can click the link in the description below to pre-register for Dragonair Silent Gods to get a special in-game gift. If you can't wait, keep an eye out for the new teaser on IGN or join the Discord server via the link below the fold. Dragonair Silent Gods is waiting for you. Okay, on to the next clip.
It's been a while. Things have changed.
Whoa, so the music of this trailer is incredible. Furious violin strings. We see some familiar imagery here for Rebels fans. Ahsoka's T6 shuttle, and Ahsoka reunites with Sabine Wren on Lothal, the same dock in the communication tower, the same place where they teamed up in the Rebels epilogue to go search for Ezra. In last year's Star Wars Celebration footage, which I was lucky enough to see, unlike this year's because it's in London, we do in the scene actually see a live action version of that same mural of the entire Ghost crew, and it has the same 2D animated look that we see in the animated show. So it sounds like that initial initial search for Ezra was unsuccessful, but they're gonna give it another go now that Ahsoka has made some progress finding Thrawn. And I like how Sabine's flight jacket has her Phoenix Squadron patch on the sleeve there. We see 3 New Republic freighters blasting in from hyperspace. These look like the GR-75 medium transports, like what we saw departing Hoth in The Empire Strikes Back. And inside we see one of the cleanest looking holocalls I've ever seen in Star Wars with Mon Mothma, Genevieve O'Reilly, who first played a younger version of Mon Mothma in a deleted scene in Revenge of the Sith, came back to play her in Rogue One, and recently played her in Andor during the Imperial era after Return of the Jedi, now as Chancellor of the New Republic. She's flanked by 4 other leaders, including one of the Grand Race, and after we saw her short haircut in Rogue One, similar to the cut she had in Return of the Jedi, she's back to a more senatorial hairdo from Andor, showing how she's back to having to play that annoying political game. But the chamber behind them has the same exact amphitheater design as we saw in the Rebel Alliance fleet war room in Return of the Jedi. On to the next clip.
I started hearing whispers about Thrawn's return as heir to the Empire.
Okay, so Ahsoka says she's starting to hear whispers of Thrawn's return as heir to the Empire, and bam, a from-behind shot of Grand Admiral Thrawn, the former Imperial Chiss mastermind from Timothy Zahn's Legends novels from the early 90s, and in my opinion, the best expanded universe literature from this era. Now, the first installment of the Thrawn novel trilogy is called Heir to the Empire, thus the nod here, and I think it's really a meta declaration by Dave Filoni that he's gonna continue to do this mission of gradually recanonizing much of the best Legends storylines and characters, and this process really started with Filoni bringing Thrawn into Star Wars Rebels, where he was voiced by Lars Mikkelsen and was the primary antagonist of that series until he and Ezra Bridger disappeared in hyperspace with the Purrgil. This guy is brilliant. He was able to deduce that Darth Vader was Anakin Skywalker based solely on Vader's barrel roll flight maneuvers, like Anakin did in the Battle of Coruscant at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith. This guy watches the tape. Now, on Saturday's panel at Star Wars Celebration, it was confirmed that Lars Mikkelsen will indeed play the character after voicing him for Star Wars Rebels, which is really great because he has the perfect voice and the perfect face for the role. And this saves us a lot of time from having to CSI analyze the shape of Thrawn's ears here, where all the stars rock. Wow! So this gold-trimmed bridge that the ship Thrawn marches out on looks like it is looking out over a hilly seaside terrain, looking a lot like the planet Kalevala, Bo-Katan's home, which was recently bombed by Imperial forces in The Mandalorian Chapter 19. I theorized Thrawn could have been leading the fleet behind that attack, and he might now be surveying that damage. Ahsoka's T-16 approaches the New Republic ship, and Morgan Elsbeth now stands on that same golden bridge looking out on a starry background with the planet's stratosphere below. 2 RA-7 protocol droids on the far sides are navigating. The last time we saw Morgan Elsbeth, Ahsoka demanded from her,
Now tell me, where is your master? Where is Grand Admiral Thrawn?
and we have been waiting for this trailer in this series ever since that moment 3 years ago. Now, Ahsoka in this section seems to be in a red-leafed forest, the same setting that Baylan is standing in, and these dark trunks look a lot like the previously burned down forest that we saw in Corvus in Chapter 13. This could just be what those trees look like when the vegetation regrows. Let's move on.
We have to prepare for the worst. The Jedi fell a long time ago. There aren't many left.
Okay, we're back in the temple ruins with this projected star map. In the scene with Ahsoka and Baylan, there are floodlights and projector bulbs. Maybe Ahsoka has set up a kind of camp here to try to read the star map to track down Ezra and Thrawn, and Baylan doesn't want her to leave with that knowledge. Why? Because it could expose Palpatine and the Sith Eternal's path from Biss to Exegol. Like, we could be seeing the origins of that Sith Wayfinder that Kylo Ren found at the beginning of Rise of Skywalker to trace his way to Exegol. They have announced that we are getting one huge movie to bridge all these Mandalorian-era shows, like Ahsoka, to The Force Awakens, and it's going to be directed by Dave Filoni. And then after that, chronologically, we're going to get a Rey movie with Daisy Ridley set 15 years after the Rise of Skywalker. So it looks like they're going to be doing a lot of work to contextualize and make a lot more sense of the sequel trilogy era. As they duel, I like how Ahsoka ignites only one of her white lightsaber blades. Remember, she got these from that lightsaber duel with the sixth brother, whom she dueled in the finale of Tales of the Jedi. But rather than igniting the second lightsaber at her hip, she kicks off the boulder to lunge at Baylan. She uses her surroundings. There's a very quick shot shot of Hera Syndulla. Her New Republic patch is 5 red dots, meaning the rank of Admiral. She might have exceeded Admiral Akbar as Admiral of the New Republic fleet or Leia's Resistance fleet. She got a shout out in Rogue One as General Syndulla over the intercom. Sounds like she's been promoted since then to Admiral. Makes total sense. She's flanked by a Lieutenant and a Mon Calamari Blue Squadron pilot, maybe one of the ones who drink with Zeb and Teva in that Adelphi Top Gun bar recently in The Mandalorian. The Blue Squadron was supposedly retired after the Battle of Scarif in Rogue One, but the Ghost did cameo in that battle, so presumably Hera and Zeb were there for it and they could be legacy members of the Blue Squadron. Shin chases down Ahsoka's T6 and Baylan charges on some New Republic soldiers with his hood up, making him look a lot like Darth Vader in that kill box sequence at the end of Rogue One, down to a vicious force choke. Sabine sadly looks at an image of Ezra Bridger, played by Eman Esfandi, and on the walls of her bunk are drawings, a Loth wolf and a few Loth cats. She really misses her boy from Lothal. Moving on. Ahsoka duels someone who I assume is an Inquisitor. He looks like the 8th brother, which would be weird to have this late after the Empire's fall. He has that same dual-wield ring grip blade that the Inquisitors use and spin the blades around. Ahsoka's able to repel him with a force push from just 2 fingers as she continues to hold the hilt and ignite it, a move that we saw Kelleran Beck use on clone troopers while he saved Grogu. The machinery being taken apart looks like old Star Destroyer engines in this industrial setting. Could be part of the Imperial fleet decommissioning process that the New Republic has been taking their sweet-ass time to do. In the background on the left, that is clearly an Imperial Star Destroyer with the outline of the spherical shield generator at the very top of it. Ahsoka leaps out of a control room window at the setting, shattering the window. That waterfront background makes it look like the same planet that Hera and Chopper were flying the Phantom over when they were trying to bring down another ship that's towing apart. The text calls Ahsoka warrior, outcast, rebel, and lastly, Jedi, as if that is the last of the modifiers she would use to describe herself. On to the final clip.
Perhaps it is time to begin again.
So this droid is Huyang, the Mark IV architect droid, who was based aboard the Jedi ship the Crucible. His job was to teach younglings, including a young Mace Windu and a young Yoda, on how to build their lightsabers. He took a young Ahsoka to Ilum to find her first Kyber crystal. In this scene, he's probably telling Sabine and Ahsoka that it's time to begin searching for Ezra again, but in a broader meta context, it feels like he's encouraging the beginning of a new Jedi Order, the one that Rey will assemble in her future film decades after this. Remember, in that mysterious Jedi Forces moment in The Rise of Skywalker, one of the past Jedi was Ashley Eckstein's voice as Ahsoka Tano, so I believe there is a link between these 2 Jedi throughout history. Let me know your favorite part of this trailer and what you're most looking forward to from Ahsoka. Reminder to subscribe to our new channel, The Deep Dive, where I just did an intense analysis of Christopher Nolan's Interstellar. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at EA Voss. Follow and subscribe to New Rockstars. Thanks for watching. Bye.